forbidden. So in Shmira Shabbos Kevasa, for example, he has a whole chapter all about games. He starts off by saying all the halachas that he's going to talk about games, that applies to children. A mitzvah bacher shouldn't be playing games. It's not holy, it's not kedusha, but you can't say that it's asur. I even heard about certain chassidim that in certain situations they would play chess on Shabbos. So it must be that it can't be asur kipshuta. At the same time, there's the main issue that comes up with chess is boider. When you're setting up the game, so there's the black pieces and white pieces mixed together, and if you're moving away the piece when they're mixed together and putting it aside, that can be an issue of boider. But if you know how to do it, when you just set up the right place, when you're setting up the board and you take any piece that you come up and just put it in the right spot, then there won't be a problem of boider either. Another potential issue might be if you're setting up a game later. Sometimes you play a game at say 2 o'clock and you want to play another game at 8 o'clock. So you set up the game for 8 hours, for hours later. That will also be an issue of boider for later. That can be another problem. But if not that, again, mitzad darkei achsidus, mitzad even not from darkei achsidus, even without chsidus, mitzad the holiness of Shabbos, it's not a time to waste on anything that's besides kedusha. But you can't say it's also in Tanya. The end of Tanya, the Rebbe talks about Zocher v'Shomer Pnimis ein Yonim. So keeping Shabbos and Pnimis, the Rebbe says that you shouldn't be involved in any kind of dvarim b'teilim. And if someone does dvarim b'teilim on Shabbos, that's an element of chilul Shabbos. Unfortunately, we all speak dvarim b'teilim on Shabbos anyway, but it's different madregas. And the more worldly you get to, the more of an issue it is. But again, to say asur is halacha, and I don't think anyone can say that it's asur. Upon him, that's what I understand. In Sanhedrin, the Gemara says that people who have lots of questions is bad. Like it says, Tafkuf Hamid Beis, Kol Yemei Oni Royim. The Gemara says that the days of a poor person all the days of a poor person are bad because he's always looking to learn. So the Gemara asks, what does that mean? That means Baal Talmud, because he's always asking questions. The Bachar is asking, but in Makis it says that Rabbi Yochanan liked his student who asked questions on him more than Reish Lakish, who brought proofs, because it forces him to understand it better. The names are not necessarily correct, but I'll upon him the point that there's a story where Rabbi Yochanan was Adarabah happy when people asked him questions more than someone that gives him proofs. So the questions are better. So first of all, in the Gemara in Sanhedrin there's a machlokes, and over there Takir Rava says that the person that has a better life is the person that takas about Talmud. Through the questions and the kashas, you end up understanding it better, you have more geschmack. Mashenkin, he says, those that learn Mishnayos and just push it up shot, they don't know the depth behind it. Those are the ones that call you on your So you can easily say that Rabbi Yochanan, when that Gemara goes like Rav. Otherwise, you can also say, even if you want to accept that, you can say there's a difference between the one asking the questions and one giving the answers. That in the Gemara and Makkas and Sanhedrin, we're talking about the person asking the questions, so he's stuck. He doesn't have a clarity. Rabbi Yochanan was the one that was hearing the questions, and through the questions, he was able to get to a bigger depth. So they made it. That was for him, it was better. And you can that will be two simple answers to accept it as a question. You can also say that roim, and it doesn't necessarily mean bad in the sense that he's unhappy. Ra can mean that he's not in the yusha, he's not in the menucha. And Mashenkin is a bigger time. Whatever, you can argue about this last thing. But upon him, the first two things you can say is the pashtus, that it's that the Rabbi Yochanan was like Rava, or you can say we're talking about the person asking the question, that he's having a harder time versus the teacher hearing the questions. He's having it easier. For him, it's more geschmack because he ends up knowing more answers and more clarity. Most Lubavitchers do not say Gadlu with the Chazan, but I heard first-hand stories and read a Shura where the Rebbe told people to say it. This is a Gadlu by the days when we have Kriyas HaTorah. So when the Chazan takes out the Sefer Torah from the Aron Kodesh, so the Chazan says about Gadlu L'Shemiti Rebbesh B'Yachdav, and everyone else answers L'cha Hashem Agdula. That's what it says in the Siddur. So the Bachar is saying that he heard and he read that the Rebbe would say Gadlu himself also, told people to say Gadlu. So why is it that most of us do not say Gadlu? The answer of Pashtus is that when it comes to all these kind of things, you do what it says in the Siddur of Pashtus, and if you have a special Hayro, you follow your Hayro. Rabbi Gurkov told me once in Kfar Chabad, again regarding a certain part of the Siddur, a certain Lekudus, that the Siddur in Kfar Chabad did would have in a certain way, a certain Nusach. And then someone came back from 770 and told them that the Rebbe does it differently. So the whole Kfar Chabad switched to the new way. And then a year later, someone else came back from the 770. He said, no, the Rebbe does it the other way. And he'll switch back to the first way. So back and forth. So I imagine that the older Chassidim probably didn't change around. This is the Nusach that we have. This is the Masira that we have. This is what we do. So if you happen to have a Masira differently, you do differently. So if you don't have a special Eiro, you go what it says by the Siddur or most Chassidim do. So the Siddur or most Chassidim, what they do is they do not say Gadlu. So that's accepted. If you have a personal Haggish that you either ever told someone related to you, or you got a special Eiro that you should say Gadlu as well, you feel that it's the right thing for you, or you made your own Bidur Advari, you got such a Maskana, the same thing applies to in Kedusha. They say the Lamasum Shapchim V'Eimrim and those things also. Some people say that Rebbe said that as well. Our minhag is that we do not say it, but someone might bring a hayra, bring a proof, whatever. But derech klal, these things, it's kedai just to listen to what the way you were raised, the way you were taught, the way it says in the Siddur. That's the simplest thing. What is the point of connecting to the Rebbe if you can connect to Hashem by learning Torah? It's a very heavy question. It can be answered in different ways. I mean, the answer can be said in different ways. The answer is l'chayda one who could, but all the answers will be based on what it says in Perek Beis in Tanya. And I'll give an example that I thought to explain it. Maybe it's my personal example, so we may not have is it accurate. The example would be if somebody has a natural talent at something. For example, a person is naturally good at a keyboard or something like that. As good as you're going to be naturally, if you're going to go to a professional musician that's going to give you some classes, you'll develop your skills so much better. And that's why all people that have good talent in things, they all try to take some kind of course, some kind of class to get better. You already have it anyway, you're doing it anyway. At the end of the day, the person that's the mumcha, that he's spent years and years on it, he definitely can help me out in a better kind of way. So, true, every time you learn Torah, do mitzvahs, you're connecting to Hashem. But there's a better way of doing it, Kinyachal. And the better way of doing it is connecting to the Rebbe. What's pshat better? What makes it better? What better is the pshat that you're connecting to Hashem, you're in a neshamadik way. And if you, for more information besides this, Perek Beis in Tanya, another important place to look this up is in the Sichos in Koirach, Chelak Dalet. Over there, the Rebbe explains that every Yid has to accept everything through Moshe Rabbeinu, the Nasi Ador, the way the Eibishter set up the Klal Yisrael from the beginning, from when we were a nation. Hashem set up that there's the Eibishter and there's the Yid and there's Moshe. Moshe is the Memutza. He's the one that passes over from the Eibishter to us and us to the Eibishter. So by us following his heroes and connecting to him, so this way he helps us reveal our neshama and connect Hashem more. So the actual Maisa B'Poyel, indeed, when a person says I'm going to study this a mitzvah, he's connecting to Hashem 100%, no question. But beside the Gilui, beside the feeling, beside the neshama part of it, that happens when you're connected to the Rebbe. The Rebbe is the one that's megali your neshama, and that's why it's so necessary. It explains that Sichon Chelek Daled over there, that the Eibishter wants both things. He wants Sai B'Poyel Mamish, he wants the feelings as well. And therefore, it's important to follow the Rebbe's Heiros and connect to the Rebbe, learn the Rebbe's Torah, in order to do this inyan of Dira Begilu, Dira B'Dachtein and Begilu. And this question also answers another question that was asked. What is your opinion on Sama? Nigunim sung by Freie Israelis without any teichen or geschmack. I don't know how Sama became the title for such a thing. I guess there's some not religious Yidden Leisata that are singing Sama. What's my opinion on it? So for them it's a very geschmacka thing. I'm sure they're being dissuaded through that when you sing the Rebbe's Nigunim. It's very good. But for a chassid, why should you listen? Why should someone listen to somebody else singing? Elam, I enjoyed the chitzonius. So then, if you look at it as a chitzonistic thing, and just if you enjoy the way this singer sings it more than the chitzonius kiviyachol, the way the chassidim sing it, the way the Rebbe sings it, then it's purely chitzonius, and then it's like any type that you have. But mitzad the primius inyan, if the person singing it doesn't have this the shamash shaboy, this geschmack and the kushaboy, then the chayda it's not. If you want to be nisayder, you want to hear nigunim from a tzaddik, from chassidim, then the chayda this won't do. If you are looking for the geschmack, the chitzonius, I think it will do. What's your favorite interim? I didn't watch too many of them, so I can't really have an opinion. What type of animal is a keresh? A keresh, the Gemara says in Chulin, is a tavia de beiloi, a very tall kind of deer or gazelle, which most people understand means a giraffe, which is in the same category, somewhat, some connected to those animals. And they say that that's what the Kaddish is. By Matan Torah, was there a change in Limud HaTorah or only in Asiyas HaMitzvahs? If I understand correctly, the Baruch is asking that we know that before Matan Torah the Yidden did mitzvahs. However, before Matan Torah the mitzvahs did not connect to Gashmis. They didn't elevate the Gashmis. And after Matan Torah, there's a change. Now the mitzvahs actually elevate Gashmistic things. So the Bachar wants to know if by Limud HaTorah there was a difference as well. The answer is yes. For more information, there's a famous Sikha, Chedak Tazayin, on Yisroi, where the Rebbe quotes a famous Gemara from Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef said, Ilav ha-yoymo kam the kagorim kama Yosef ika bashuka. If not the day of Shavuos that caused me to be different, how many regular Yosefs are there in the market? And Rashi says over there, Moshpat hayom the kagorim shalamade the Torah ben Yisroi mamti. And the Rebbe has all the riches in the Sikha how Limud HaTorah elevates a person. The Limud HaTorah of Matan Torah actually is a different type of Torah kiviyachol, not bechitzonis but limius. The Torah that we learn after Matan Torah is indeed there's a change in it, and the fact that now it elevates us in a way that we could not have been elevated before Matan Torah. Why don't Chabad have Ataris on Talesim anymore? Ataris means the silver things on Talesim that most of the world has on their talis. Chabad does not anymore, as if they used to have it. So it's interesting that, if I remember correctly, it says in Kisvei Arizal that Arizal did not have an Torah and said you should not, and not only did not have, he said you shouldn't have. The thing is, when it comes to Atalis, well, I got this applies to Atalis cotton as well, by Bachrim. You're supposed to have that the Atalis cotton should be the same way all the time. So the part that's in the front should always be in the front, the parts in the back should always be in the back. You shouldn't switch it around. That's why some Talesim have those little bells on the front. There's different styles, different patterns on the front and on the back. So you should try to keep your Talis cotton the same way, the front and the back. It shouldn't change. I don't know if it's a big deal if it does change, but that's what I was told. It has to be always the same way. So by a Talis cotton, also the same thing. The top has to be on the top and the bottom has to be on the bottom. So in order to tell the difference, they made us. They have bitna, a piece of material that we have to the difference. But that, so then in the past there was an Torah as well. There was a crowd also. And today, by the Pelish Chassidim, so there's different levels of how holy they are. So some of them have two Torahs, one on the Rosh and one on the Acharayim. I'm not sure exactly the reason behind it, but that's the Metzias. It's like a certain level of